first impact of climate change or climate variability is on vulnerability. We can no longer plan reasonably robust contingency and adaptive response, and as a result of which we become helpless, or our ability to counteract risk and to mitigate risk goes down substantially, which means that our vulnerability increases. So this project is organized and focused on reducing vulnerabilities of communities living in rain-fed farming systems. It is a multi-tiered intervention profile. The first thing that you have to handle is to buffer agriculture from the vagaries of climate variability and change. In other words, to build up its resilience and strength. The viability of agriculture is also a function of natural processes. In other words, the water that flows on the surface, through the soil, through the groundwater aquifers, the nutrients and waste management and recycling that takes place in an ecosystem. All this impact the robustness and productivity of agriculture. So the first thing is regenerate the environment or the watershed in which agriculture is taking place, to rehabilitate degraded watersheds and basically manage them in a sustainable manner. The next thing is the hydrological cycle. What makes a watershed live and the ecological niches within it thrive is access to water, because water is life. In a monsoonic regime and in drought-prone areas where the days when you have harvestable rainwater is not more than 8 to 10 days in a year, for us, trapping rainwater wherever it falls across the entire catchment or watershed is the key to not only regenerating the local environment and ecology, but also the key for the sustenance and development of the local community living within that watershed. And the idea is trap rainwater wherever it falls. Water that is rushing, you slow it down. Water that is slowed down, you make it walk. Water that is walking, you stop it, and stopped water, you force it underground. In fact, groundwater allows for a more equitable distribution and sharing and accessing of water. The focus and approach would be, in this case, water in terms of its need and requirement as an input for livelihood activities. One of our major interventions in this whole area of water resources development, which is water balance studies. Now, once you know how much water you have, then you have to allocate it and use it in a way that gives maximum output or productivity per drop of water. So we are going to be also studying crop water requirements and also irrigation systems at the micro level. So we will of course be introducing conservation irrigation systems and precision agriculture. Now, with regard to agriculture development, that's the third layer of our development. We will try to suit it to changing weather patterns as well as changing local agrometeorological conditions. That's a huge challenge, because really speaking, nobody knows what will happen and how to do it really. As a result of which, we would have to develop systems of prediction, emergency responses, as well as set in place systems that will make such responses possible. Disaster management basically. Even though we know what to do, you don't have forewarning to be able to do that and prepare for doing that. Which will mean we'll have to look at new cultivars, new cultural practices. We'll have to work out contingency plans in the event of X happening. We'll have to put in place resources and assets that farmers can draw upon to implement those contingency plans. So the key thing for agriculture will be to buffer it to climate variability. We will have to adopt cropping patterns that meet the following criteria. Number one, it must meet food security concerns. Agriculture that is also focused on meeting market needs, because unless that happens, you will never be able to earn income to live. So that is also a requirement. And last, it will have to be sustainable. In other words, it should not only maximize productivity per drop of water, but it should be done in a way that does not deplete the soil and other natural resources on which agriculture itself depends upon and in which, as an ecosystem, it is embedded. The other level will be with regard to biodiversity. Biodiversity for us is important because apart from its own value, as part of an ecosystem conservation effort, it also has for us cultural as well as economic and commercial implications. The ownership of those resources must be with the local community. So it's important that we document the local fauna and flora and train people to recognize the wealth that they are living with and have. The other component that we will be having is livelihoods. As a result of now the traditional livelihood patterns coming under risk, notably agriculture, livestock, and nature-based livelihoods, we'll have to work out ways in which alternate livelihoods are created, or present ones are further insulated to climate variability, as well as adopt practices that reduce and mitigate risks. That for us is an area that we will be also looking at in this program. Now, in addition to this, we have another sector, which is the knowledge generation, tools and pedagogy development, and advocacy and dissemination. Now, it has got several parts. It means largely research in terms of action research, documenting what is being done, drawing lessons, conclusions, best practices, and widely sharing them with the general public, as well as to specialists, as well as with government. The other thing is developing tools, IT-based tools, and in that case we have been developing a tool called CASTAT, which is quite a significant breakthrough in terms of knowledge systems, assessment systems, which enable people to assess whether the proposed activities they wish to undertake, or the activities they already are undertaking, are actually climate resilience or climate adaptation compliant. All the sectors that I have spoken to earlier will be providing inputs into this tool, including biodiversity. The other thing is, we have to give farmers advisories in terms of crop management, irrigation, pest management, cropping pattern to be adopted, etc., market conditions. For that, we're going to be developing also an automated platform for giving advisories to farmers, which will include feedback and inputs from various sources and advise farmers what to do under different conditions. It's an IT-based tool, largely focused on giving agricultural advice, but will also include marketing advice, which we may do in partnership with other service providers. The other component of our program is to document all that's going on. So we have a research wing that is not only doing databasing, but also regular and periodic collection of information and analyzing it. These will all be coming out in terms of pamphlets, booklets, research studies, as well as will be shared through conferences, seminars, audiovisual aids, as well as through the web and through social networking. And the last will be, of course, engagement with government and its research, as well as specialized institutions. The reason being that whatever we develop, we want to develop it as a replicable pedagogy that anybody who wants to do something in this field in rural areas can adopt quickly to and run with it, so that whatever we learn goes into the public domain and becomes available for large-scale replication across this country. So it has basically two sections. One is doing, the other is learning, and from learning with sharing and capacity building of others.